And we are live. Hello and welcome. This is Highly Articulated. I am Adam. Today we got a really fun show. We are going to we're going to go over a few toy lines that should have been. We're going to do our top three IPs that we would like to see as toy lines. Some are old, some are new. I will fully admit that half of these I had never heard of and didn't know anything about. Joining me today, he's been on before. Always fun to have him. Jeremy, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me,
I
man.
hope we're not interrupting anything or what.
I was just staring into the menagerie here that is my display room.
Mhm.
So but yeah, really appreciate you having me. I'm gonna do my best to stay upbeat and keep this lively, even though I am a little bit under the weather today. I don't know if you can tell by my voice or not, but I've been popping cough drops like they're candy. So
So we may
um
get some pretty interesting discussion out of you.
yeah, I might actually have something interesting to say for once. So just before we get into the topics, right? We're talking about properties that never got a really fleshed out toy line, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right, a little one-off something here or a Lego set. We're not counting that as a figure line, right?
We will allow that. That is correct. Yes. So
Okay.
we should. I'll bring Patty. Well, I'll bring our other guest on.
Yeah.
I'll bring Patty on, and then we'll go over it. What's going on,
Yes,
Patty?
sir. Similar to Jeremy, coming back from like the slightest of colds. So I've had some Dayquil, and I'm coming back from some Nyquil. So we're trying to keep the thought cogent on this one. We're gonna try
Okay.
hard. Gonna try hard, but I think we
Okay.
got a fun one.
This could get good. This could get good.
This was
But
a
yeah,
this was a great topic, by the way. Like it took me a while to sort of really think of something because a lot of stuff has toys. So
that's a big thing, right? Like when this idea, Jeremy, I think it was you that
it
suggested.
was, yeah.
We were sort of like, yeah, let's do it. There's got to be tons of stuff, and then like, I mean, okay, that has a toy line. That had a really bad toy line. There's a Lego set, or there's a Super 7 figure, or there's toyetic
hmm
IPs tend to have toys. Believe it
Right.
or not.
So that's why we went ahead and we modified the rules for this, which is like we're talking like never actually got a fleshed out line.
Mhm.
Like Dick Tracy had a very fleshed out
Yes.
line, you
Yeah.
know. So that made it a little bit simpler, but still it was kind of difficult.
Yes.
But I think I think everybody's gonna have a really good time. I think
Mhm.
some people are going to be kind of surprised that some of these things that we have to talk about today didn't actually get one because they were chef's kiss perfect for getting a toy line, but just didn't.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think some people are also going to go, "What is that?" I've never heard of that.
That was me. Is that why you that's why you named the episode this?
Yeah, because
Okay.
like in our interactions, like between you and I, Jeremy, and Patty and I, like there was definitely every time somebody went, I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is.
So I sent for anybody that's listening to this now or in the future, I sent my list of three properties to Adam. And then Adam sent his back, and I had no idea. I had seen those words before, but never in that combination, right? I had no idea what he was talking about. So
What does this mean?
Pat,
what does it mean?
just
Um,
wait for Patty's. I mean, I'm curious to know, Jeremy, if you've heard of some of these ones that Patty sent, because
okay.
I I end up sort of doing a little bit of a deep dive in some of these things because I'm just like, how did I never hear about this? Where did this come from? Like, what's the like when, where, why? Like, it
hmm
doesn't.
Okay, so mine are pretty mainstream, right?
Yes,
Mine,
yeah.
I'm starting to think that like, is it a
Two,
geographical difference between Canada and the
I
and the U.S.? Is
I
there
think
some?
there are aspects of that because two of your three I knew, and people will know which two of the three.
Okay.
Um, I think the third one I didn't know it at all.
Oh wow. Okay.
With Patty, I knew
hmm
one of three, and the two that I didn't know, well, you'll see. the
There
third,
They're definitely American properties, though. Well, except for the one of them is British, but they're
Yeah,
definitely
but
super like red, white, and blue, man. I'm eager to talk.
they're well, you'll see. There's one. I did pull one. I could have pulled for Paddy's. I could have pulled a lot of picks. If we were working a little bluer this episode, I could have
Sure.
pulled a lot of picks that would have been, maybe would have had to have like some sort of paywall blocking them. I did pull one that I think
Jeremy's face
should
is
be
awesome.
okay, but I really want an explanation of exactly what we're looking at. But we'll get there. I'm just gonna quickly say hello to the chat. Larry Reed, what's going on?
Hey, Larry.
Speak speak of a paywall. We get firewall. What's going on? My question to both people that are watching live and people that may watch this on replay, I want to know if you guys have heard of these properties, or like if these are as obscure as sort of we think they are, or what have you. Because I'm fascinated by that all the time, especially when people go, "Oh yeah, this toy line was my favorite toy line in the 80s or in the 90s," and I'm like, I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. And then it turns out it's this huge line. Now these are IPs that didn't have toy lines, or sort of didn't have any major toy lines, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, just anyway, what's going on, James?
Hey, James.
But
What's
without
up,
further
James?
ado, let's just go ahead and get into it.
Sure.
We're going to start with Jeremy's, then we'll do Paddy's, and then we'll do mine, and then we'll just sort of keep going around. We've got 3 each, so
Just but before we get into it, these are in no particular order of merit.
no,
Agreed.
Yeah, we're not
yeah,
going from my number 3 to my number 1.
yeah, and they're kind of all over the place, and it would have been hard, I think, for any of us to really pick like an order. I sort of did them in whatever order they came to me, and so we'll see.
One more disclaimer before we get into it. I made this list operating with my current level of knowledge, right? That a deep dive figure line is not in existence. If there is one that
Right.
does exist and I didn't
Sure.
know about it for some reason, it was some kind of international thing, like the never ending story stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Then I apologize in advance for my ignorance of these properties.
I think the never ending story could have almost qualified for this week's episode.
Yeah,
but
totally.
you'd already used it, so unfortunately that's
it's just so versatile.
Yeah. I mean, those figurines that they did are great, but I mean, it's yeah. Anyway, Aaron has joined us as well. What's going on, Aaron?
Hey, buddy.
Let's get into it. Jeremy.
Yep.
I've never heard of the Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Okay. Paddy, are you in the same boat with that?
I think I've heard you mention it either on this show last time or potentially on another show you've been on.
Right.
I know the words sound familiar, but the IP absolutely not. Run us through this.
So The Adventures of Pete and Pete was a Nickelodeon live action series, right? About these two brothers who are not twins. There is a very good amount of there's a few years between them, both redhead, but they are Pete and Pete. And it's just the kind of wacky adventures that they get into in this this town that they live in is almost a what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like a caricature of like a typical American suburb or something.
Okay.
So the littlest Pete has a sailor tattoo on his arm. It's a girl named Petunia, and he'll flex his forearm. He's like, "Dance, Petunia, dance," And there's just all these crazy characters, like Artie, the strongest man in the world. His mom has a metal plate in her head that sometimes picks up radio signals. There's a whole list of villains that they have from school. Individuals like Pit Stain, Open Face, Endless Mike, Hat Head. you know. So I think a really really fleshed out figure line from this would have been great. And there was vehicle. I'm sorry. There was vehicle opportunities as well with their dad's station wagon
Okay.
that he
Don't have
had
one of
too.
those.
Yeah, so that could have been a lot of fun. Adam, do you have any of the other production photos or anything, or was
No,
this the only one? Okay.
because I had no idea what to pull.
So I gotta ask you, Jeremy, as
Yeah,
Yeah, I have questions.
I think that you've disclosed you're a bit of a wrestling fan, right?
I am. Yeah, I
Does
am.
the older Pete not look like a Kevin Von Erich?
Whoa, yeah, he looks like he could be one of the Von Erichs for sure.
I think we
That's
should
interesting.
fire Zach Efron and we hire this guy wherever he is. Money no object. Let's just find this fellow and give him another job.
But it was it was during the time when sometimes like 90s pop culture icons would come and they would be guest stars, for one episode. And they would just go on all these crazy adventures and have these hijinks and stuff. Like the littlest Pete had this whole he had a sick day planned, right? He was going to have a sick day, and it involved going to the grocery store and bribing one of the stalkers there to get a label from an expired can of tapioca pudding, so that when he felt like he was sick, that the next day his mom would go in the trash and find the tapioca pudding with the expired label on it, and then he had all this stuff that he was, I mean, LL Cool J was in it. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was crazy.
I'm getting a sort of a vibe of like Recess meets A Christmas Story.
I don't like I said,
Like,
it's
what is this? What was it like? I'm trying to imagine. Like you're describing it, and I'm like, okay, this could really be the tone could be anywhere.
right.
Like,
But the thing about it is that nothing was campy about it. They completely took 100% all of these crazy scenarios that they were in. They all took them
okay,
100% seriously, right?
okay,
Okay.
During the summertime, there was the individual that operated the ice cream truck was Mr. Tasty, and it's like the heat's just killing these kids, and they're like about to die. They're like Tasty, kind of like Rosebud,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I really really suggest anybody that doesn't know what it is, track it down, track the episodes down, and take a look at it, because it's a really really cool slice of 90s pop culture right there.
I don't think you're alone on this because just typing in the Adventures of Pete and Pete, the autocomplete on it is like streaming.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
there are
Yeah.
people that are looking for this.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a channel on YouTube that has a bunch of the episodes archived, but I don't know if
Nice.
they're in the right chronological order. So I don't know. Check it out. Try to find a DVD of them if you can. I have the collected works, so
Nice.
and I really enjoy them.
Was there an overarching story narrative, or was it sort of episodic? Just here's the adventure this week kind of thing.
Yeah, adventure of the week, but there was
Okay.
fan service in it,
Mm.
jokes from older episodes, so it
Okay.
would come back and stuff. So
So what type of toys are we talking? Are we talking a 6-inch, or are we going like a classic 5 or a 4-inch, like Playmate style?
I mean, 100%, I would have expected these to come in like a 4-inch, 3 3/4.
Hmm.
Sure.
Um, maybe even something akin to the Pee Wee's Playhouse line, right?
Right.
And I think that
Nice.
that could have worked out too. But the cast of characters is absolutely huge. And it would have made sense, and all of them are really fun to look at. Um, so I'm just thinking about the strongest man in the world, and he lives inside of a porta john. He's essentially,
As they do.
So there's your SDCC exclusive box set.
Oh yeah.
That
yeah.
figure plus the
Hmm.
the porta john, so that you get the playset element to it as well.
Hmm.
People in ACBA would need it, so I get it.
Yeah,
It'll sell.
exactly.
Yeah, so that's that. Huge, in my opinion, a really big missed opportunity for Old Line.
There, I feel like there was a lot of potentially a lot of Nickelodeon shows that just there were almost too many for them to all get a line.
Right. I mean, can you imagine like the Double Dare play sets, right? With green slime, you know what I mean? Like the cans
Oh
of
my
green
God.
slime and stuff like that. You could do a miniature play set for almost all of the events from Double Dare.
Yeah.
And that would have been a ton of fun. Very, very similar to the American Gladiator. I think we had this very
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
last, yeah.
That a lot of those molds are out there. They probably could have
Mhm.
taken advantage of that, but
Yep.
I in the past 2 weeks, I actually saw. I think it was Toy Galaxy. He was doing. I think it was Toy Galaxy. He had done a retrospective on "You Can't Do That on Television,"
Interesting.
which went into Double Dare and like the spin-offs from that production and the whole idea of Slime and Nickelodeon's like merger and how it sort of made the network and such. It was really interesting.
That was my first exposure to Alanis Morissette when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and then when she came in the '90s with her Jagged Little Pill album, I was like, "Whoa, she's back!" Because I kind of had a little thing on Alanis back in the day. So
Sure.
yeah,
um,
isn't she your queen? Isn't she
She
the?
is. She's on our she's on our money.
She is on the
yeah,
money.
she's on her $10 bill.
That's
so.
what I thought. That's what I
Mhm.
thought. She is. She's part of the magistrate. Yeah, I'm joking, obviously.
We're not.
We're not like at all.
She's up there in the sort of pantheon of sort of Canadians that we will always be proud of, like them or not. Like,
Right.
so yeah, she could be on the money, and I don't think anybody would complain.
I think so.
Paddy, I've never heard of this.
Go with me on an adventure. Star Chaser: The Legend of Orin. I discovered this film at the beginning of the pandemic. Went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and they said I got. God, I think somebody posted on Facebook like the top 10 Star Wars clone movies that you should see.
Okay.
This was number 3 or 4. What this movie is from 1986. Hold on, bringing it up because I brought up some of the facts because I suspect I might be the only one who knows of this. 85, November 22nd, 85. So we're coming up on an anniversary. Yay.
Oh boy.
Interesting.
This steals so much from George Lucas's masterpiece. You have not a farm boy, but a young mine sort of worker, slave, or prisoner who unearths a laser sword, not a saber, a laser sword.
Okay.
Joins up with a gruff, sarcastic, sardonic pilot, and is joined by a princess and rebel against an empire.
Okay.
Sounds oddly familiar.
Right?
However, then it takes a turn.
Yeah.
What?
So,
Exactly.
so instead of the lovable Chewbacca, as the Han Solo had, our space pirate has himself a ladybot. And if you want, we could think of it as like taking sort of the best elements of the Han Solo movie, meaning Lando's girlfriend robot. These guys beat them to the punch. And I almost think, did the screenwriters maybe see Star Chaser first? And that's what influenced them into giving Lando
Right.
a lady bot. So yeah, this image out of context, I mean, I can't even make it good. It's not. I can't sell you on it. It is pretty
that
well.
robot seems to be in a pretty compromising position, and I'm thinking,
Indeed she is.
engineering wise, the necessity for an access panel right there on a robot, and it's escaping me right now.
And
Take notes, Elon Musk. This is how our robot overlord should be.
when I was pulling up the images, I mean, this wasn't the only one that sort of had this sort of a vibe. But I will point out that her mouth doesn't always have that white. Like, I think her mouth is taped up.
Mm-hmm.
He's pulling a screw out of the toolbox there. There's something going on here. This is this.
I have some wonderful news. This film is, in fact, free on YouTube.
Interesting.
In fact, I'm going to put it in the chat.
Oh, cool.
If anyone's curious and wants, I don't know, to go down a rabbit hole with all of us. Not right now,
This
but afterwards.
this felt to
Um,
me like
yeah.
Star Wars meets heavy metal or
Yes,
fight.
very much. Very, very much that influence.
Yeah.
Its bad guy kind of looks like the bad guy in heavy metal,
Mhm.
right? Bottom left hand of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
That and like kind of like a Kurgan from Highlander, which
Mm.
by the way was in my honorable mentions. I would have done Highlander, but they did technically just release like mini 3 3/4 inch figures. So I'm like,
Oh.
I'll stick away from it.
So this gray skinned individual, bottom left hand corner, that's the primary antagonist.
He is the Darth Vader.
Okay, so who is this brainiac looking guy to the right?
One of the minions in the mines.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
Sort of
there was a lot. There's
threatening
a
him.
lot of like cybernetic stuff, and
Absolutely.
yeah, because that guy has main villain written all over him.
mhm.
Okay,
He's definitely evil.
okay,
The princess dresses all in white, kind of not unlike Princess Leia. Like there's a lot of elements here that are just like it feels of its age. You
okay.
can also buy this on Blu-ray, apparently.
That's interesting that there's a Blu-ray transfer.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking for this toy line? Traditional 5 POA, very, like 5 POA, like of the time.
I don't know. I almost want to do Black Series.
Really?
I really want to go with it and just say, listen, we're stealing from Star Wars. Let's go the full way. Let's
Right.
just
Okay.
do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Let's just commit. A retro line could work though. I could see both being, but in my mind, I'm like 6 inch. Let's try it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Black Series, they finally found a way to get me to buy more Black Series figures. So I don't know if you saw. Are you two fans of Knights of the Old Republic, the old video game?
Mara Jade, right? No, wait. Knights of the
No,
Old. No, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, the old
From
KOTOR.
yes.
So there was a little teaser that Bastila is coming.
Nice.
And so I've seen Zalbar just kind of hanging out at GameStop for forever now. And I
Mhm.
wound up getting him for $5 because he was half off and I had my monthly $5 premium member coupon. So hopefully they
Nice.
continue down that line and I can get all the characters from the game.
Does GameStop in the US do $5 Fridays?
I don't know about Friday. No, I don't think so.
Mm.
They do it up
Mm-mm.
here. I ended up scoring a Dormammu for like
$5.
$5 Canadian.
Interesting.
So roughly what, 50 cents American?
I think it's closer to 70 cents, but give or take.
So $5 American actually means that you owe me money in America. I'm sorry, $5 Canadian. It's actually a negative number. So
So this $5 Friday, I always kind of check. This $5 Friday, I got a Cowboy Bebop hoodie for $5, and I got a Motu Classics Battle Cat, which is the only Motu Classics thing that I own. So now I think I probably should track down a He-Man, but
oh, nice.
But yeah, $5 Fridays gets you every time because you're like, yeah, for $5. I mean,
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess I need it.
Yeah, exactly.
I need it $5.
Um,
Firewall said Star Chaser seems vaguely familiar.
It's because you've been consuming Star Wars product for your
Yeah.
entire life.
Yeah.
This is, but honestly, man, I see where you're coming from. This looks
Yeah.
like perfectly primed to get in 80s toy line. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got the red bandana,
Mhm.
midriff, his abdomen is showing. He's, I wouldn't say generic, but he's very
Of the time.
reminiscent of the time, right? The type of hero archetype that we were used to back then.
Yeah, and the animation style too. Just kind of, I could like without even seeing it in motion, I could
Mhm.
just imagine how they move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's that sort of very realistic type of animation where people walk the way they walk and run the way they run.
Mhm.
But
I don't know.
it doesn't superimpose properly over the background. So like the speed that they're running doesn't really match how far they go in the same amount of time. You know what I mean?
So I'll say this: I'm not like an expert on its production, nor do I know of any literature out there about this.
I
But
bet nobody is in it. on it.
I can tell you that like some of the shots look like rotoscoping, like
Yeah.
the idea of filming real people and then drawing over them,
Yeah.
kind of like a lot of Ralph Bakshi's stuff, like Fire and Ice.
Mhm.
I really like that method though. I
Yeah,
do.
oh,
I
so do
really
I.
enjoy
So
it.
do I. It's
Um,
fun.
so yeah, I'm gonna check this out for sure, man. Appreciate you bringing this to my attention.
Yeah, this was one where as soon as I pulled it up, I was like, why have I never heard of this? Like, it's not like it came out a couple years ago, and that's, what I picked some stuff that might be a little bit newer. So I was kind of like, yeah, if people don't get it or don't know it, maybe it's just because it's not been around long enough. But this, I was like, okay, 80, what'd you say, 85 or 86? Like, this has been around my whole life, more or less, and I've never heard of it. And I've been a Star Wars fan for my whole life. So it's crazy to think that something exists like this that we've never heard of. Which makes me wonder what else there is. But that being said, I think we'll get to some of those further down. My first one was just Disney classic animated films in a properly articulated line. Disney has a habit of doing little figurines in little packs of 4 or 5, and there's a couple Super 7 figures out now. But when those Super 7 figures came out, what I realized was I really wanted a lot of characters and designs from when I was a kid. Certainly some more than others. I would definitely lean towards certain properties, some of which I sort of pulled here, but not all. I didn't pull Peter Pan. I didn't pull Sword in the Stone. I didn't pull Black Cauldron. Like a lot of those sort of magical, mythological ones, I think would be really fun. I did pull Sleeping Beauty with the dragon. Snow White, I was saying before we went live, I would love like a box set of the 7 dwarfs with their pickaxes. I would like alternate heads where they get sort of their heads when they're with Snow White and their angry heads when they're chasing the witch up the mountain to chase her off to her death. Robin Hood,
That's pretty savage.
Favorites.
Those dwarves are pretty savage, man.
I mean, they've got a complex being short as they are, so they've got they got a bit of chip on their shoulder, I think. But it's sort of in the same vein on the last show, I was talking about Richard Scarry's Busy World and Busy Town. Like, I would love for there to be a line like this that had a pretty decent price point. Doesn't have to be like crazy articulation, just enough to sort of get a younger audience, a younger crowd into action figures, into sort of posability of action figures. Something durable, right? Where I want sort of articulated elbows, articulated knees, a little bit more than 5 POA. But cartoon deco accurate and scaled properly too. I don't want them all the same size. Yeah.
Is McFarlane doing anything like this with his Mirror Universe stuff? I know it's based off the game, but would that sort of be a style that you would want this line in?
Yeah, okay. And that was something that I thought of too, but I didn't bring it up because I thought it might almost break the rule there. They are doing the Mirrorverse figures, and they look fantastic, and they're super fun. They're not crazy posable, but it is, like you said, McFarlane. So they're like, I think they go for like, I want to say $15 or $20. So they're Canadian. So I think they're like $12 US. So they're a very manageable price point for parents. And they're characters.
I'm sorry,
but in different decos. But I would love to see them in the decos that the classic decos.
Sure.
You know who I think could do this absolutely flawlessly is Diamond, with their Muppets line that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Two figures for $35 and all of those accessories, and they're decently articulated. We're not talking about like an import or anything. But the deco and the sculpts are true to the originals they're based off of. I think they would do fantastic with this.
That's a good shout because they do a really good job of including the accessories and things that they need, but they don't sort of go overboard. And they do the sets too. Like there's sets of 4 or 5 where if these figures make sense coming together, they would release them that way.
Yeah, dude, Animal's drum kit that he came with, he's like Neil Peart from Rush. I mean, his drum kit is, he just has so many pieces to it, man. At $35, come on. Anyway, that's sorry,
Yeah.
it's just my opinion. I think they would be perfect for that.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's all I really need to say about that. It's characters that everybody's familiar with. It's and I think that's why it would make a great line too, because you would have, I mean, I would buy them for myself and let
Yeah.
my kids play with them. But there's tons of Disney fans out there. There's tons of action figure fans. These, I think, whether people like to admit it or not, this is where a lot of us sort of started with characters that we loved, right? Disney classics.
Sure.
Everybody knows at least a few of the classic Disney movies. So
Right.
Ooh.
Everybody knows this one, right?
I assume so.
So yeah, I know that some product did exist, right? There was like this 8-inch
NECA.
Yeah, no. I'm talking like vintage from the time.
Oh, from the time, yeah, no.
Yeah, there was they did make this like 8-inch screaming Kevin McAllister. Right. I think he was like a pull string thing. You go,
Yeah.
But it never got a deep dive into the line, right?
Yeah.
But I guess when you think about it, there weren't really that many characters in this movie besides Kevin and the Wet Bandits, right? You have the scary man from down the street with this snow shovel that you could do. But I don't think at any point in time that having a limited amount of characters in a movie has ever stopped a toy company from making 3 or 4 different variants of the primary protagonist, right? Like a neon night attack Batman and a Sub-Zero Arctic Batman and all that stuff. You could have like a zip line, Kevin McAllister, a BB gun bandito, Kevin McAllister or something like that. And I think they would have been a whole lot of fun.
I, for one, would personally purchase a Buzz's girlfriend from
But
the photo picture.
Woof. Yeah.
So Jeremy, when we were going back and forth, this was on your honorable mention, but then as we talked about it, you're like, I changed my mind, put it in my list.
Right.
And the more we talked about it and the more that I thought about it, and sort of the more I was pulling up different pictures and trying to get them to fit on a slide nicely, whatever. We're referencing Home Alone 1, but as far as like, wave, you could do a couple waves, I think, from Home Alone 1, but you could do waves from Home Alone 2.
Dude,
do waves from Home Alone 3.
If we could get Tim Curry,
however many there are, I don't know.
Tim Curry figure would be sick.
Yeah, Tim Curry, the Pigeon Lady, Donald Trump from Home Alone 2. We could get them all.
John Candy's Polka Band.
Oh God, the Kenosha Kickers.
U-Haul van.
The Kenosha Kickers.
Yes.
Very big in Sheboygan.
Very big.
Polka.
It's not too far from me, man. But
you could do sort of a playset of the house that could come with, like, it could be like one of those really full on sort of late 80s, early 90s playsets with all the trap doors and all the different things, like the windows could pop out. It would fold open.
The paint cans, you set them up and they're just on a string, and then you hit a button and they hit, they fall and hit the Wet Bandits as they're ascending the stairs.
You could
totally.
You could engineer it too, where there could be like an additional playset of the treehouse with a zip line where you could connect it so that he could slide from one playset to the next.
Sir, why aren't you in the industry? That is fantastic.
Because this is way more fun than actually being responsible for like selling this stuff.
but yeah, having an additional playset, very much the way that the Technodrome and the sewer playset from TMNT integrated together as well, right? That's where your head's at.
Yep, exactly,
dude.
Exactly, and just having them sort of cross compatible, so like you could have one or the other. You don't need to have both, but if you do, it just adds more play value, and you can kind of go with it.
That's such a good idea, man.
And I think was there not an animated series?
So I know, I don't think so. I know for a fact.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
I remember the marketing campaign had everybody just so wrapped up in this, and I remember this Scholastic Book Fair came to my elementary school,
Yeah.
I think,
With
and
the
I
order
bought
forms.
I bought the
Yeah.
novelization of Home
Mhm.
Alone. So I mean, just like any product I could possibly get, I was trying to get. And there was a Super Nintendo 16-bit video
Game, yeah.
game, Home Alone.
Mhm.
So it's really surprising that figure line never came, but huge
Now,
missed opportunity.
now, as far as this property goes, I could see this going sort of, one of two ways. It could be sort of a Mattel or Playmates type of 5 POA, really, really retro, really sort of referential to the time of the movie. Or I could see this going in the same way that, like Back to the Future's gone with like NECA, or
Mm.
the way that Back to the Future's gone with Playmobil.
So I would like to see this in that classic 90 aesthetic. Think about the Last Action Hero
Yeah.
figures.
Yes.
Remember those?
Yeah.
That's precisely what I want. You have a perfectly scaled kid for
Mhm.
that line. Um, Man, I think there's a lot of there's really a lot of possibilities that you could do, especially with the sequel as well. You can get
Mhm.
Fuller with his bottle of Pepsi, just he's gonna
Yes.
wet the bed. All that.
You could get you could really go deep and get play sets for the hotels in
Oh my God,
where do
yeah.
they go in Florida in the first one, and Paris in the second,
France.
I think?
France.
No, they
Yeah.
went to France in the first
In the
one.
France in the
first one,
first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you could yeah, like you could get you could get like an airline customer service counter where the mom is like shouting at the the ticketing lady, like trying to get on a plane.
Right. Imagine inside the McAllister home playset, right? If there's an electronic feature built in the living room where he's watching that television or that movie, and you hit
Yeah.
the button, and it's like, keep the change, you filthy animal.
You could
I
get two,
love
like
that.
you could have like swap out sets. So
Yeah.
you could set up the dance with all the
Mhm.
cardboard cutouts and stuff.
Yeah.
And again, if you could have like motorized, you could have them so that the cardboard cutouts kind of did the dancing and moving like
Yeah.
they did.
You could do that on the first floor. I mean, think about the Karate Kid dojo, or think about Castle Grayskull. There's two levels to it. So the top level would be that living room, kind of kitchen entryway, and then the bottom would be that absolute basement of terror that he created for those two criminals.
And the
Um,
furnace.
and yeah, the furnace down there too. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, that would be a great playset, man.
We need to talk to the Hasbro guys and take some of the Engine of Vengeance light ups.
I
I
did.
think that would work as the furnace.
They got some spare LEDs with fire effects, so that's
They do.
I
they're not
just
gonna be using them anytime soon.
I just I don't know who has the rights. I think it might be Disney, because didn't they do like a Home Alone reboot not too long ago?
You might be right.
I
I'd
think
have to check if it's on Plus.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think with 90% of everything else, Disney acquired this at some point. So
Yeah, because it was a Fox property, right? So
Yeah.
they have it.
yeah,
Nice. Excellent choice.
thank
That's
you.
yeah, and it's might not be a line for everybody, but it would definitely be sort of a fan service type line for sure. Moving on, Patty, to another property that I've literally never heard about. And
Never?
no, not ever until you sent this to me, and I was like, maybe he spelt something completely wrong because I have no idea.
Is that
did
Roddy
not.
Piper?
It is.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to take you on a journey back to 1988.
Okay,
Just a little bit before what's it called? They Live.
They Live.
I
Yeah.
think it's the same year, actually. I believe they're both 88s.
Now,
Yeah.
is this influenced by Star Chaser?
No.
Okay.
I've watched this film, I want to say about 5 times in my life, and I can tell you I don't know what it's influenced by. It's absolutely an acid trip.
The whole thing is, it looks that the art. Can you go back to that? The promotional art. This is a fever dream.
It's
Yeah.
a total fever dream. You have
Right.
on that cover, you have Roddy Piper.
right?
You have Sandal Bergman, who is most famous for being in the first Conan movie as Valeria,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a giant lizard.
With an eye patch.
Thinking of it now, the closest thing I could like compare it to is kind of like Space Adventure meets A Handmaid's Tale. And let me explain why.
Is that why she's
What?
collared and leashed?
It's not even about women.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, this has absolutely nothing to do with the film, but basically, all men have become impotent in this world,
Okay.
except Rowdy Piper,
Yeah.
The
who is.
hell?
He's
I'm
got
not
that rowdy pipe. That rowdy pipe is working.
So the government tries to track him down. He is forced to impregnate women, which is why he has a castration belt on, as you can see in this image.
It all makes sense now.
Oh, does it? Explain to me how. And I've watched it.
It's a chastity belt.
Yeah.
It's a chastity belt.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, you said castration, and I was
did.
like, "Whoa,
I misspoke. It
that's
is
a crazy
chastity
device."
belt. Well, it can actually shock him if he misbehaves.
Oh,
So what they do on this, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, you could probably mix Mad Max Fury Road in there in
Mhm.
terms of meaning. So basically, this group of women is kidnapped by these mutant like creatures, these frogs is what they call them. They run a small city just outside, and they're kind of like warlords and chieftains and what have you, and they
mm-hmm.
kidnap women and impregnate them to create ostensibly more frog mutant creatures. Roddy Piper's hired by the remaining humans of America to not only impregnate some women, but also go and rescue these other women. Ostensibly, even though it's not made clear, probably to impregnate them later.
So he's not only the only man who is able to procreate, but he's
Mhm.
also the only man for the job of saving the women.
You get it. Exactly.
I mean,
Makes
this
sense.
is
Carry on.
there's just so much testosterone there. I mean, you could get
It's
pregnant just looking at him. You know, he's
totally.
It
yeah.
seems like an elevator pitch that somebody's like, yeah, we'll do it, and they're like, oh, that's all I had. I didn't really know you'd say yes, so okay, we'll have to piece this.
Uh, yeah, so when he gets out there on the road or on his mission, uh, the the chick from Conan is assigned to him as his handler, I guess you could say.
Okay,
They also have like a very armed, kind of like Vasquez from Aliens, sort
Okay.
of gun person next
that's
to
this
them as
other
like
woman,
their
I
armed
think,
guard.
right?
Another woman, yes, they're
Yeah.
all women. There are not many men in this film except for the hot one, Roddy Piper.
That's
So
debatable.
it's very debatable. This
It's
whole movie is
debatable.
debatable. Watching it, like, hyper debatable. Um, I I'm thinking in this could probably be pretty easy for Mattel to do in their movie line. You know how they have a They Live Piper out.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I could see this being its own subline.
They could just swap
Actually, I'm sorry, I just said that
too.
out loud, and I'm like, I probably can't see it, but I'd like to see it. You could have like a whole bunch of monster frogmen and Roddy Piper shooting them.
Okay.
This to me sounds like great fun for anyone's display shelf.
Yeah, and I think I mean, not knowing the property at all. There's just looking at the pictures, there's chainsaws, there's heavy weapons, there's vehicles too that kept popping
Yep.
up. I didn't know what to pull, so I just kind of pulled a few characters, just for points of reference. But I think this one is also available as a Blu-ray. Believe it or not,
It
it came out
is,
when I was.
and I'm not
Oh,
entirely sure that you could, if you did some digging, you could probably find it on. Oh, I found it on Tubi for free. If
I was
anyone is
gonna say,
interested.
if it's not on YouTube, Daily Motion or Tubi or one of those other sites is definitely gonna have it. You can find all of this stuff. That is the beauty of the age that we live in, right? Like,
Yeah.
if there's a property that you've never heard of, it's out there. You just have to find the proper link to watch
Do
it.
you think I'd get in trouble if I put it in the chat if anyone wanted to see it?
I
What
have no.
the YouTube link?
I
No, the
think
Tubi
I think
link.
chat's fair game. I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's find out.
I don't know how that works. I would delete it, but I don't know if that would get something else deleted. I don't know. Put it in, whatever.
Yeah.
Tubi's
So
legit. Like Tubi's when I stumbled across Tubi a couple years ago now, I was like, this can't be legal. But it turns out they have ads and stuff, so it's all appropriately licensed and
Seems like it's on the up and up. It's not a me problem. Yeah.
if someone's gonna get in trouble for this, it's not gonna be me. So I'll keep watching. They had
I
GI Joe on there, which is why I started using
oh
that.
yes,
Oh, well, it has the Hasbro official YouTube channel has
24
24-hour live streaming GI Joe, Real American Hero.
Yeah, but whoever's in charge of that doesn't like there's an obvious break in GI Joe for commercials, and
Right.
they don't put the commercial breaks in at those times.
Yeah.
It's just in the middle of a sentence. It'll just go to commercial. And then when it's
Are-
like the normal time for a commercial, it just goes to the next scene. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is
Wait.
going on here? Tubi
Are you-
doesn't. So
Are you accusing someone at Hasbro of being lazy?
it's gross negligence, in my opinion, because it's a disservice to that show.
The most first world problem.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Totally.
But it's so funny because like they don't really make cartoons that way anymore, where there's like a very obvious break where there would be a commercial break put in, right? Because everything's made for streaming or on demand. 22-minute long cartoons are just 22 minutes long.
Yeah.
There's obvious spots where like a scene sort of changes and you could put an ad in if you needed to. But like G.I. Joe and He-Man and Thundercats and sort of all these cartoons that we loved as kids, Ninja Turtles, which I'm sort of currently working my way through, they'll have sort of a drop in the action and sort of a pause.
Mhm.
That's where the commercial went. And then we
Yep.
sort of pick up that same scene a couple seconds earlier and sort of get you back into the episode. And to have the break not where the break naturally is just incredibly frustrating.
Right. Yeah,
But
I can see that. It's actually an issue I don't have. I do have YouTube Premium because I don't.
get away from the ads.
Yeah, I mean, I watch enough YouTube. It's probably 70% of the time I spend in front of the
Okay.
television, not gaming. I'm just watching YouTube content.
Yeah.
So
I tend, like with G.I. Joe, I buy it. Like if there's a series that I absolutely loved as a kid and I want to watch it and I'm going to want to watch it with my kids and sort of I don't want to have to be like, okay, where is it? Is it still on the Hasbro site? Is it on Tubi? Where do I got to find it? There's something I'm happier to just own them. And I can play them whenever I like. Also, as a collector, we tend to buy things like that we really don't need because they're out there in some other format, but we buy them anyway.
After my sales pitch, do you think Frogtown will become one of those purchases for you?
No.
Unequivocally, no.
It's definitely one that I'm gonna try to watch at some point. I just got to figure out when, because there's not going to be anybody who's going to want to watch this with me. So this is one of those like late night when I'm working on something in my office. I'll sort of play it on the TV that's across from where I sort of set up at my desk, because I feel like it's one of those ones where the story may not hold my attention for the full 90 to 120.
sorry.
Well then, sir, what is your number 2?
I went comic books, and
Ooh,
I sort of picked Sea of Stars initially, but then once I started thinking about like, okay, that's an Image comic. Maybe there could be like an Image line, and they could do retro waves. They could do waves like that's where it sort of breaks from. Yeah, there was Wildcats toys. There still is Spawn toys. There was all those different super teams, Team 7, Gen 13, like we talked about, Wetworks. So you could do sort of 90s retro waves as well of figures for some that had existed before, but a lot of them they just never made. These are 3 semi-current, because I think Sea of Stars is now done. It was only like 12 issues, but it was super, super fun. Sort of sci-fi outer space. This kid on the cover here is like the main kid. There's like mystical, magical elements to it. It's sort of like the future, space, a distant galaxy. There's like space whales and space monkeys and just all kinds of weird. It was just super weird. Oblivion Song is current. There's sort of an alternate reality that exists within our reality, kind of. I don't know if you guys ever saw that show Fringe, but it's kind of like that, where there's a couple people that sort of traverse between the two universes, and there's sort of conflict of, like, the world's sort of competing for certain space. Isola is an absolutely beautifully made, I would say, fantasy with sort of a sci-fi element to it. It has a very Studio Ghibli feel in terms of the design and the layout and stuff like that. Very, very toyetic properties. I could see this in the same way that, like, Marvel Legends does, like, an Avengers wave and a Spider-Man wave and an X-Men wave. Like, you could do waves for different books, and sort of all under the umbrella of Image Comics, because Image being creator owned, there's tons of different aesthetics, there's tons of different styles, and I think it'd be really, really fun to get a lot of these figures.
I also noticed, I knew I remembered, but Oblivion Song is Kirkman, right? He wrote
Correct.
it?
Yeah.
So the Walking Dead champ wrote this.
Yeah.
He's not a stranger to having toys made of his properties, so yeah, definitely this would be great. And Image as a whole is such like a rich history of characters and designs. I'd love to support this line. This would be so much fun.
And
There's a recent line based off of an Image property.
Which one?
It's golly, I can't remember the name of it. I think one of the primary antagonists, he looks humanoid, but he has like ram horns.
Saga.
Yeah.
Saga, yeah.
But that
I have seen those figures in comic book stores.
Yeah, that was and that was right on the verge. That might have gotten included if they didn't have those figures. But
Okay.
I think there's only like 4 figures. Like, there's 2 sets of 2. Like, it didn't go any further than that. But there's tons of characters in that book too,
Yeah.
where you could easily do a couple waves. It feels like one of those properties that, just because it's created, like, Image is funny, right? Because it's creator owned, there never seems to be like a concerted effort to do product apart from the books themselves.
Right.
You might get a poster, you might get a couple figures, you might get a pin set or something, but it seems to be entirely up to the individual creators to sort of push that stuff and pursue that, because it's not consistent. Like, when you do get Image figures, McFarlane's doing some stuff, but he's not doing all Image stuff. Those Saga figures, I don't think were McFarlane. I don't know who made them.
No, they weren't.
So it's interesting. I mean, it just seems like an untapped wellspring of this one's kind of cheating, because this is more than one IP.
Sure.
But I think it works. I think it would work as an actual viable one. This is less of those, like, pie in the sky, like, wouldn't it be cool if. I think this is a line that really could go somewhere. And I think in a weird way it might draw people into some of the books that they didn't read, because you see a cover and it doesn't always speak to you. You see the figures and you go, whoa, these designs look fantastic. Maybe that's a book that I might want to get into. But
yeah.
But not everybody reads anyway, so that's another story.
Yeah, it's a lot of people are giving up on the comic book industry, myself included. It's probably been 3 years since I've stepped into a comic book shop. I go to places that are like pop culture stuff.
Right. Yeah.
They have figures, they've got Funko Pops, they've got Yu-Gi-Oh, they've got all that, and they have a small display of current comics. But I kind of noped out of that about 3 or 4 years ago.
But those could be the shops too, right? Those could be the shops that could carry a line like this.
Sure.
The ones
that
for sure. The smaller stuff, some of the things that seem more like a one and done. You could get a little bit of longevity, I think, out of pulling in different books, because a lot of them too, like I said, Sea of Stars was only 12 issues. Oblivion Song, I think is still going.
36. They
Yeah,
just wrapped in June.
but it's done, I think, right?
Done.
Like a lot of Image books tend to be like that.
Mhm.
Isola has done kind of they did sort of book 1 and book 2. They were 6 issues each, and it's been on hiatus for it feels like about a year. I really want to know where the story is going to go. Um, it's one that I recommend to a lot of people because it's short, it's easy to get into, it's really fun. Jeremy, I actually recommended this one to Jason. I said this has a quite a similar kind of vibe to what he's doing with Animal Warriors, where it's kind of a world that we know, but not in the way that we've seen it before.
Yeah.
It's it's a great book, and I think it would translate well. I mean, I would pick any one of these 3 too, and you could do a line, multiple waves of a line. But just to sort of expand the universe, I included a few.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate you bringing those to my attention. There's ever like a collected works of those, they go into like a graphic novel format. I may have to check those out.
They do have them, and I don't know if Image still does it, but Image is really good for like volume 1 is usually like $10
Oh, okay, cool.
to get people a taste of some of the titles. Now, it doesn't apply to all of them. Like Sea of Stars being only 12 issues, they might not have done that because you're only going to get 2 volumes.
Right.
But I know a lot of them. Paper Girls is an Amazon Prime show now.
Yeah.
I think that's about 6 volumes or 8 volumes in trade paperback. And I think that was one where like volume 1 was $10. It's like, hey, check it out. If you don't like it, you're only in for $10. So
That's cool. It's actually that's a really good strategy as well.
it's I think it's genius because you kind of already made your money on the single issues, and you're just generating a little bit more revenue based on something that you've already sort of hopefully kind of made your money back on. So it's kind of a no-brainer. But up next.
Yeah, so my final pick, and gentlemen, I do apologize. I got a text message from my wife who is needing a hand with the 3-week-old upstairs.
Absolutely.
So this is my last, and I'm gonna have to leave after this one. Like I said, my apologies.
Understand.
Not at all.
So is anybody here unaware of what Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is?
No. Again,
Rewatched it this year with my kids.
Yeah. This was, I mean, obviously you could not do this to scale, right? The kids would have to be a little bit bigger if you were going to do an ant vehicle or, like a Lego and something like that, especially the Scorpion. You have the Scorpion bad guy, but I mean, think of the possibilities for play sets in this, you could have like a thimble trap, you know what I mean, that drops down and traps stuff. And it's I think someone with a really, really big imagination could have done some very interesting stuff had this been made an actual toy line.
This one would be a ton of fun. Like you said, you could do the ant vehicle, and you could kind of scale I felt like you could kind of scale the figures based on how big you wanted the ant or the Lego brick or whatever, right? Like if you wanted the ant to be, 8-10 inches long, you could do kind of 3-inch figures or something like that. But the possibilities are kind of endless with this because it's all real world things. You could extend it, right? You could extend it outside of the movie property.
For
and
sure.
you could be like, what if this had happened? What if they had encountered this item? Scale wise, how would they interact with it? Because it was all about, interacting with things in the wrong scale.
Right. Yeah. Especially oatmeal
The
cream
cookie?
pies.
Yeah.
And it would have been cool to get another Rick Moranis figure. I think the closest thing we got was a Louis Tully from the Real Ghostbusters. Figure line. So that would have been cool. The Shrink Ray would have been cool. They could have been cross play with other stuff. Like shrinking other things down. And
I don't want to keep you, but we got to ask, what company's doing this?
Oh, this is Kenner for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has got classic Kenner written all over it, man.
Gimmicks all over it.
Yeah,
Like,
gimmicky, just
mhm.
just like they used to back in the day.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
that I don't know, man. That's huge missed opportunity. I would love to have a vintage, version of these
Yeah.
on this shelf, somewhere in here.
Strings, springs, all the yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, you could even do. I know. You remember that Joker that came, from the Batman line, and he had his flower would squirt, so you put that
Hmm.
pump in there.
Mhm,
You could have a play feature like that with the pump in the tube making it rain.
mhm.
Um, I don't know.
I'd love it.
Like I said, big missed opportunity. This would have been a ton of fun.
I think too, like yeah, like with a lot of those vintage lines where like they would release toys that weren't necessarily connected to the property. Like yeah,
Hmm.
I'm just sort of going through my head, like the opportunities would be endless for the play sets and all the different things. Yeah, it's a good pick for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I tried. It was
Nice.
actually like we were saying at the very beginning of the video. It was kind of difficult to
Yeah,
actually get viable picks because there was so much product made from everything back then.
yeah.
But the three that I picked, I just don't get it. I don't understand why they didn't do it. But
Hmm.
you know, I wasn't an 80s or 90s era toy executive, so
Yeah.
you know, I have no idea.
But it seemed like they greenlit kind of anything, or it felt that way.
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, right? You're like, well, they greenlit that. Why did they not greenlight this? But anyway,
Yeah.
that's a conversation for another day.
That is a conversation for that. Maybe that's a whole nother video. Like,
Top three. Why
what?
did they make
Yeah,
this?
top three. Why does this exist?
Yeah.
Um, that may
Agreed.
be the Terminator 2 line. Um,
Yes.
that would definitely be a "Why does this exist?" line with Arnie with his pink shirt on and stuff and one robot arm, with a clawful claw on it. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah. Talk
so
about artistic license. There was.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Jeremy,
Anyway,
keep you any longer. It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Take
very
care, Jeremy.
much for joining us. We'll definitely be chatting again very very soon. We'll get you
yeah,
on for another one of these episodes. So
yeah, thank you very much for having me again. It's always a pleasure being on the channel or the channel, gentlemen. So, um, bye to everybody in the chat. Bye to everybody that watches this in the future. And I can't wait to talk again soon.
for sure. Take care, buddy.
Cheers, man.
Okay, bye guys. Bye everybody.
Bye. Great picks. So
Your
yeah, my third and final is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic version or iteration. This is a bit of a tougher one because I know it could never happen because Alan Moore just does not believe in fun or marketing. He would shoot it down for sure. That said, if the stars aligned and if they were able to do it somehow, I really feel that this would be a fun line. You have
Mhm,
three, like I was thinking of it mainly in the first volume,
mhm.
the one which the very crappy '03 movie sort of
Yeah,
tries to translate.
yeah.
But it does have other books in the series. I think I'm aware of three. There might be more if you count the Black Dossier.
Right, yeah.
Um, I I just don't know what to say other than these would make really cool figures to me.
I think
Uh,
is the appeal a little bit the crossover between sort of different because it's kind of
sure.
crossover between multiple IPs, multiple sort of
Public IPs
historical.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
Um,
I don't know that Moore would necessarily have to sign off on it either because
he would if they were. I want them in sort of the design that are depicted in this book. And
okay.
as a core concept, he would probably have a claim for intellectual property over combining Nemo with Mina Harker with Jekyll and Hyde. Like
Mhm.
it would be tougher to do if I was just doing literary. Yeah, you could definitely build your own, but in my case, I kind of want that marquee on the package.
Right.
I know that Mezco has done their Captain Nemo and the Nautilus crew,
Hmm.
which super cool figure. I kind of want like this version from the comic Nemo.
Okay.
Um, that said, I don't know what company I'd want to have do this. Like I guess being a modern toy collector, I kind of default to the 112 scale, Marvel Legend-esque, multiple points of articulation. But based on the book, I could kind of live with a little bit less articulation, kind of like maybe a Super 7 or a Diamond Select level of articulation. It doesn't have to
Sure.
be like wild, but
Mhm.
at the same time, good enough poses for our photos would be
Mhm.
great.
Now, totally random sort of
Mhm.
question. Invisible Man,
Mm.
translucent or bandage wrapped?
Bandage wrapped, I'd have to go with
Yeah,
translucent, perhaps San Diego Comic Con exclusive.
sure,
uh,
sure.
but
Or just
yeah, I'd have to go bandaged.
a chase figure of like just nothing in the box. You just have to imagine that there's a figure in there because
Like Matty Collector did for the Legion of Superheroes with the
yeah.
empty slot. Thanks, Toy Guru.
Um, this would be a fun one, and I think
Yeah,
if you sort of um what Moore's done with the characters is great, but I think you could almost go one step further and just pull in kind of other literary characters and other literary villains,
sure.
and almost make this it like in the same way that I was sort of looking at like an image line with waves of figures. You could do this as a line where it's like, hey, there's never been a figure of this hero or this villain, but it would fit, this line. It would fit. So you could absolutely have the main protagonists, and sort of the main antagonists from the books as they exist now, but you could supplement them, I think, with other appropriate figures and other appropriate characters for sure.
We got to make it happen, Adam. We have to petition.
We don't have enough toys because there's not enough stuff that we already have to
Exactly.
pass on.
Like Jeremy said before, first world problems, right?
It's one of those things, right? Like we dream of all these toys, and oh, wouldn't it be great if this toy came out? And then it does, and we go, well, where am I going to put it? Like what? Like it's we get ourselves in trouble for this stuff because our wishful thinking, generates, hype and generates interest in these figures and these lines and in these waves. I've heard a lot of discussions recently about like how much is too much, like how many
Mhm.
figures or how many lines or how many waves or how many um this week, I got my first. This one's next to me, the other ones aren't, so I can't reach for the other ones, but I got my first taste of the Super 7 Ultimates Ninja Turtle line, but I also got my first taste of the the Toon Turtles. And just thinking of the NECA, right? You've got the Toon, you've got the video game, you've got the Mirage, you've got the Archie comic.
Yeah.
Like, where does it end?
Bankruptcy.
Yeah. Divorce,
Divorce.
bankruptcy, living alone, in a tiny apartment filled with trinkets. Because effectively, if you're not a collector, that's what they are.
Correct.
There's little chunks of plastic that represent memories or sort of nostalgic things for us. But yeah, I mean, this would be a super fun line, and I think there would be a market for it. And again, I
Hope
think
so.
it could be one of those lines, almost in the same way that like there's Disney fans that aren't collectors.
Mhm.
There could be kind of literary fans
Yeah.
or comic, like Alan Moore comic book fans that aren't collectors that could potentially buy these figures. It could be one of those. It could be one of those lines where we get
And
two
Alan is so
figures a
sad about
year.
that.
Or, what's that?
Said Alan Moore is so sad about that. Like, please don't give them money.
What a weird dude. What an odd career choice for somebody that sort of has explanations. But anyway, that's a totally different conversation entirely. But
Totally.
yeah, I could see these as in the same way that like Mezco or some of these lines do. Like you're gonna get one figure, maybe quarterly, or one figure every 6 months or whatever. So like it could be a line where, it's not like 6-figure waves every 3 months. It could be one of those slow burns
I'm
where
I'm thinking pacing wise, do it like Jada Toys is doing. Like on eCollectibles, I think he still has some of the Jada Monster line.
Hmm.
Um, though that line is really interesting and the closest I've sort of seen to what I'd want this line to be.
Let me
Is
see. I'm
Universal
just pulling it up. I'm
Monsters.
just trying to pull it up
Oh,
here.
cool. Yeah.
Which takes me a second, but is very doable.
Is it Universal Monsters? I forget what it was called.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
sorry.
Universal Monsters.
I
No,
think I know which stuff you mean. Um, this stuff.
that's the
That's the
NECA.
NECA stuff though, right?
Oh wait, no, the sold out ones. No, go up. You're right. You're right. Yeah, there we go. That's not the NECA. That's the Jada
The
Toys
Jada Toy
ones. Yeah.
stuff. Okay. I searched Jada and this is what came up. So if it's the
Yep,
wrong
it's
stuff, that's
totally
on
that.
Mike. That's on Mike for tagging his items wrong.
No, that's totally right. He still has a few left. Oh, he still has Dracula. Not Dracula.
No,
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein is the only one that's left. The other three are
I'd
sold out.
I'd consider buying it if you're out there and are
They're
curious. Like,
$32. I mean, that's a pretty decent price.
I'm definitely going to be supporting their Street Fighter line. I've
They look
decided.
good, right? And
Yeah,
if they're sort of in that $30 price point,
sold
Marvel versus Capcom,
right there. You've done it.
that's tough because it's not. I'm not looking to get Street Fighter figures,
Mhm.
but I already have the Marvel ones. I already have all those X-Men figures and a lot of the other ones. It'd be tough to say no to some of that stuff. But yeah, shout out to since we're sort of on it here. Shout out to Mike at eCollectibles. Paddy, you and I both. This is my main source of toys. Go check out the site. Lots of stuff on there. Lots of stuff surprisingly sort of still available. Some of the Mythic Legions of Lithia stuff is still available.
Mhm.
Sold out just about everywhere else. I got into, like I said, the Super 7 Ultimate Turtles because I was kind of waiting. I was kind of waiting out, like, well, what's the QC going to be? But the reviews were great, and I was like, okay, here's my list of figures that I want. I got a fun thing where I sort of prepay for them, and I say, Mike, in the next shipment that you send me two of
Yeah,
my list. So it's like blind box, which is actually really fun because I don't need them all right away. I'm happier to sort of get them one at a time so I can appreciate them. And so I
totally.
got Raphael and Bebop in my first
And
offering.
those are pretty hefty, right? Bebop, I
Yeah,
mean.
they're absolutely. They're fantastic figures. Like I wish I hadn't waited so long. Like he
Nice.
towers over the turtles, which is the way he should be. He wasn't in
Yeah.
the classic figures. He wasn't even in the cartoon. But I mean, it's appropriate for you know for what it is. But
So I gotta ask, what's your number one?
yeah. Let's get back into it. Which hold on, I just have to reset this here. Um, you know what's weird is that they changed it. I used to just be able to toggle between tabs, and now I can't. So I just have to close the one and open the other one. Um, yeah. So my last pick, and it's too bad Jeremy wasn't here because this was one that Jeremy had never heard of this.
Really?
It is a series of books called Redwall. There's 20 plus novels, and they're thick, dense novels. All the characters are animals.
I
Uh,
was gonna say I could see why you like it.
mhm.
You're
It's
on brand with this.
this is Look. Here's the other thing. This is sort of this sort of intellectual and sort of emotional evolution of
Sure.
Disney
Yeah.
in a weird way, in the way that a lot of classic Disney used animals as main characters. Redwall has that vibe and that feel of you know having an animal sort of represent certain character traits, right? Like right here we've got two of the covers and then sort of one other picture because it just looked great and didn't fit on my second slide. But all the beasts sort of represent different factions. You know, the rats tend to be bad, the mice tend to be good, the badgers kind of go either way. There's owls, there's shrews, and they're all sort of sized appropriately. So, you know, badgers in battle tend to be just hulking warriors that just can kind of cast off two rats at once, kind of thing. But it's just really great storytelling, really good character development, and just a ton of characters and a ton of potential for wave after wave after wave. Um, and to the best of my knowledge, you know, it doesn't have to be Redwall. There's other sort of IPs where there's animals sort of anthropomorphized, but it's sort of a medieval fantasy type of thing where, you know, you got a little mouse archer there, you've got little warrior rabbits and hares and squirrels and sparrows, and just I would just love to see all these things in sort of properly articulated forms. I don't need crazy articulation to the point where they fall over because they're too articulated. But I would love to see how somebody could imagine this. This is sort of one of those. This is probably my most pie in the sky one, just because the property is not known to a lot of people. But it's also largely because, like I said, I would love to see articulated animals.
Who's building this line in your mind?
No clue. No clue. That's sort of the problem is, you know, it could almost be like a startup Kickstarter type of thing where somebody just, because I don't know that anybody's sort of doing something like this. That's part of it, is that articulating animals is not a hugely popular thing, which is why we don't see it. You know, Mythic Legion's done the horses really well. The GI Joe Classified has done, you know, Timber and
Crocodile,
you know, a wolf and a crocodile really well. But by and large, articulated animals just aren't out there. You see sort of figurines of stuff. But anyway, Jeremy is no longer with us on screen, but he's still hanging out. He's still interacting, so that's good. That's great. Steve Power said, "Oh, sorry, did someone mention Star Chaser?" We did, Steve, and I said I've never heard of this before until Paddy messaged me and said, "Here's my picks." So Steve, after this, I'll definitely be chatting with you to to glean some more knowledge about Star Chaser, because as it seems, Steve knows what you're talking about. So
nice. I'll be honest, the Redwall thing, I selfishly want them to mix a little bit with like AWOC when it eventually comes out, when Jason's property comes out. I think that could be really fun.
I'm not gonna lie.
I could also see them with legions quite easily.
And that's kind of it. Is that I'm almost looking at that more like, I wish somebody would take some inspiration in terms of you know, the some of the art that I showed. I don't necessarily need a Redwall series, because if I got the figures and I could kind of transpose characters onto you know, a Mythic Legions or an Animal Warriors figure, I'd be perfectly happy with that. It's more about getting sort of articulated animals. And knowing what I know about some of the things that may be coming from Animal Warriors in the future, I think there's going to be some really cool stuff in there. That line just speaks to me, more so than most other lines. I've said it before and I'll say it again. That's by far my most anticipated figures to be coming out this year.
It's gonna be coming soon, man. We're like, what?
Oh, absolutely.
I think Jason projected December, so even if there's a delay, maybe Jan, like we're so close.
I'm anticipating those showing up and me wrapping them up for myself and putting them under the tree to myself, so that I can sort of slowly appreciate them, like one at a time. But yeah, I mean, more like I said, there's lines that I love, you know, Legions, Classified, All of a sudden these Super 7 TMNT figures. But that is without a doubt the line that I'm most excited about. So yeah, that's where we're at. And like I said, you know, the animals that I think that they could do in that line may if it doesn't satisfy my desire for sort of those figures, it will definitely scratch the itch pretty well, I think.
Nice. Well, I'm really happy with all of the selections here today. Like
Yeah.
I think none of them like underwhelmed. I thought that they were all really well thought out.
And there's probably more.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
you know, Miko Darkblade mentioned, I wish the Smite game had a toy line. I really like their characters. Um, you know, if there's anybody still watching that has sort of a line that they think would be cool, let us know. If you're watching this on replay, by all means, fire a comment down below. Let us know of a property. That was the thing with this, is that there was like properties that I would think of, but they would have a toy line. But I also, you know, when I was sort of digging around, looking up sort of the properties that you guys mentioned, and pulling together images and stuff like that, I sort of stumbled across other ones that I didn't have time necessarily to get too deep into. But there's tons of stuff out there. And you just sort of look at something like Star Chaser as something that I'd never heard of. That's the other thing, is a lot of times we knew of IPs because of the toy lines as collectors, right? There was sort of an obvious connection that we made between a physical object and a cartoon or a movie or a comic book. But that's not to say that I knew every animated movie or comic book or
Sure.
watched them all. So there's definitely stuff out there that has potential to be a toy line. Steve says, bring back Spiral Zone. I have no idea what Spiral Zone is. So that's
Gonna have to look that one up for myself.
look
Sorry.
that one up. But yeah, that's the thing. There's just so many IPs out there, and for different people too. Like there's different connections, right? There's different levels, different amounts of like nostalgia connected to certain things. And so, you know, the heart wants what the heart wants, and it's sometimes strange and fanciful, and you won't necessarily land for everybody, but when it does, that's sort of a magical thing. So anyway, Paddy, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or anything you wanted to chat about here at the end?
No, I'm good on my end. It was really fun to chat with both you and Jeremy.
Yeah.
Great suggestions, and we'll have to think up a fun challenge for our next one.
Mm-hmm. Cast Cat says, bring back Galaxy Rangers action figures and do some Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop does have a few figures.
I've
Figure,
yeah, but
or
Bebop
was
is
it
like
Kumar?
no. Well, they have more. They have the most recent was SH Figure Arts, but they do have
Mm-hmm.
another company that made Bebop. Sadly, is snake bit. It only gets about 2, max 3 figures out, and indefinitely they're always Spike, Vicious, and then the line dies.
Yeah, they never do
We
Ein.
were They never do Ein ever.
They never do the villains. There's so many good villains.
I wanted a Fae one, but apparently not. So yeah, it's a bummer. But I agree that would be fun to have.
I feel like if SH Figure Arts is sort of that line where they'll do a few characters from a few different properties, and you know,
Goes
even if you
away.
can't get everything, at least you get, you know, one or two, and they're all kind of scaled similarly, so you can almost kind of have a shared universe. You know, you could get your Cowboy Bebop, you could get your Lupin the Third, you could get your you know, you could get a few characters from a few different properties, and sort of have them
Yeah.
cohabitate on a shelf, even if we don't get full lines. So that's good. And like we were sort of talking about, some of these things that we've talked about, there's one or two figures out there, and we just want more. So that I think Cowboy Bebop is sort of one of those properties where there's one or two out there, but there's definitely an appetite for more. So
Nice. Anything else on your end, Adam?
No, that's all I got. That was, it was a great chat, a great topic. You know, a
Totally.
fun one to sort of delve into because like we said, there's a lot of IPs out there that don't have lines. There's a lot of IPs out there that people don't know. So like I said, you know, if you think of one that we haven't, by all means, fire away in the comments down there. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications, because I'm also going to start doing a new show, if you will,
Nice.
called Open Late. And the idea there, the motivation there is, I get tons of figures, and I'm really bad at setting aside time to do like proper unboxings or reviews. So I'm just going to open them late at night, and I'm just going to do it live. So if people are sort of hanging out or interested, they can jump in, ask questions, things like that. But it'll be super casual and just I've just always got a stack of stuff to open, and I never have the time set aside. So I thought, you know, if I could just do sort of a midweek, it's probably going to be, you know, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of thing. I'm kind of thinking tentatively around 8:30 Pacific, so 11:30 Eastern. But it'll be pretty for the moment. So you know, hit that notifications button, and you will get you'll get the little bell telling you when and you know where. Well, it'll be on YouTube, but when I'm sort of going live to do those. I think this week it's looking like it's very likely gonna be these guys that I open.
Nice.
Because I
Enjoy,
got
man.
them and haven't had time to open them, and they look phenomenal. And then I've got some GI Joe stuff. Actually, that'll be those Spider-Mans will probably be this week. Next week will probably be some Mythic Legions, some Legion builders. So
Awesome. Looking forward to it, man.
yeah, that's and that's like I said, it's just super informal. I won't be preparing anything. I won't have slides. It'll just be sort of it'll just be sort of my hand, you know, the toy cam thing of just my hands opening boxes and chatting over top. But Faye popped up when I worked at EB as one of those fancy anime statues that looks a little emphasized. Yeah, they do have a
She is prone to that. Yeah.
Like throw a blanket over it when mom stops by. I always wonder, right? Like there's gotta be guys that just have, you know, I have my action figures and it's all safe for my kids to sort of see.
Sure.
There's got to be guys that have a room where they're like, kids, you can't come in here. These toys, especially when you get into the anime stuff, you know, you could have a room full of statues and toys that were a little questionable, a little not so kid friendly. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure, Paddy. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
As we sort of mentioned, you know, if you're looking for a quick plastic crack fix, hit up our preferred dealer, Mike over at ecollectibles.ca, and
Yes,
and he'll get you fixed. He'll get you sorted out. We're you and I are both looking forward to this. We got the Mythic Legions Necronominus wave reveal coming Friday, so we're going to be a video on Saturday for our Saturday night's live for our reactions to that wave. Very much looking forward to that. Hopefully you guys can all join us, and that's it for us. Thank you,
man.
been great.
Thank you.
See you guys all next time. Bye bye.
Cheers.